Hello, everybody. Welcome to Stories from Your Gaffer. I'm Clint McElroy. This is my lovely wife, Carol McElroy.
Not so lovely.
We're not so lovely today. We're both feeling a little bit under the weather. Nothing serious, just a little worn down. But we didn't want to miss this as we continue to read Odd and the Frost Giants by Neil Gaiman. We're up to chapter 5, and this is entitled At Mimir's Well.
Really, truly, with all of his heart, Odd found that he wanted to believe he was still in the world he had known all of his life, that he was still in the country of the Norse folk, that he was in Midgard, only he wasn't. He knew it. The world smelled different. For a start, it smelled alive. Everything he looked at looked sharper, more real, more there. And if there was any doubt, then he only had to look at the animals. "You got bigger," he told them. "You've grown." And they had. The fox's ears were now level with Odd's chest. The eagle's wingspan, when the bird preened in the sunshine, was as wide as a longship. The bear, which had not been small to begin with, was now the size of Odd's father's hut, enormous in its bulk and in its bearishness.
"We didn't grow," said the fox, its fur the vivid orange color of a blazing fire. "This is how big we are here. We're normal sized."
Odd nodded, and then he said, "So this whole place is called Asgard, and the town we have to go to is also called Asgard, yes?" "We named it after ourselves," said the bear. "After Azar."
The Aesir.
Aesir. Who?
The Aesir. I only know that because I wrote the Thor thing.
The Aesir. "How far is that from your place?"
This fox sniffed the air, then it looked around. There were mountains behind them and a forest all about them. "A day's travel, maybe a little more. Once we get through this forest, we reach the plain, and the town is in the center of the plain."
Odd nodded. "I suppose we should get on with it then." "There will be time," said the bear. "Asgard is not going anywhere. Right now, I'm hungry. I'm going fishing. Why don't you two build us a fire?" And without waiting to see what would happen, the great beast lumbered off into the darkness of the forest. The eagle flapped its wings loud as a small thunderclap, and it took off, circling higher and higher, and then followed the bear. Odd and the fox gathered the wood, finding dry twigs and dead branches. Then Odd heaped them high. He took out his knife and sliced a point on a hard stick. He put the point against the piece of dry softwood, preparing to rotate the stick between his hands to use friction to make the fire.
The fox eyed him, unimpressed. "Why bother?" it said. "This is easier." It put its muzzle against the heap of wood, breathed on the twigs. The air above the twigs wavered and shimmered. Then, with a crackle, the sticks caught fire.
"How did you do that?"
"This is Asgard," said the fox. "It's less solid than the place you come from. The gods, even transformed gods. Well, there is power in this place. You understand?"
"Not really, but not to worry." Odd sat down beside the fire and he waited for the bear and the eagle to return. When he waited, he took out the piece of wood his father had started to carve. He inspected it, puzzling over the shape, familiar yet strange, wondering what it had intended to be and why it should bother him so. He ran his thumbs over it, and it comforted him. It was really twilight by the time the bear brought back the largest trout Odd had ever seen. The boy gutted it with his knife. The fox devoured the raw guts enthusiastically. And then he speared it through with a long stick, cut 2 forked sticks to make an improvised spit, and he roasted it over the fire, turning it every few minutes to ensure it did not burn.
When the fish was cooked, the eagle took the head, and the other 3 divided the meat between them, the bear eating more than the other 2 put together. The twilight edged imperceptibly in the night, and a huge, dark yellow moon began to rise on the horizon, achingly slowly. When they had finished eating, the fox went to sleep beside the fire, and the eagle flapped heavily off into a dead pine tree to sleep. Odd took the leftover fish and pushed it into a drift of snow to keep it fresh, as his mother had taught him.
The bear looked at Odd, and then it said casually, You must be thirsty. Come on, let's look for some water. Odd climbed onto the bear's back and held tight as it lumbered off into the darkness of the forest.
It didn't feel like they were looking for anything, though. It felt like the bear knew exactly where he was going, and he was heading somewhere. Up a ridge and down into a small gorge and through a copse of trees, magical in its stillness. And then they were pushing through scratchy gorse, and now they were in a small clearing, in the center of which was a pool of liquid water.
Liquid water. Liquid water? I know, but liquid water.
I guess as opposed to frozen water.
Oh, okay. Careful, the bear said quietly. It goes down a long way. Odd stared. The yellow moonlight was deceptive, but still. There are shapes moving in the water, he said. Nothing in there that will hurt you, said the bear. They're just reflections, really. It's safe to drink, I give you my word.
Odd untied his wooden cup from his belt. He dipped it into the water, and he drank. The water was refreshing and strangely sweet. He not realized how thirsty he had been, and he filled and emptied his wooden cup 4 times.
And then he yawned. I feel so sleepy. It's all the traveling, said the bear. Here, let me. He pulled over several fallen fir branches at the edge of the clearing with its teeth. Curl up on those. But the others, said Odd. I'll tell them you fell asleep in the woods, said the bear. Just don't go wandering off. For now, just rest.
The bear lay down on the branches, crushing them under its bulk. The boy lay beside the animal, smelling the deep bearish scent of it, pushing the fur and feeling the softness and the warmth. The world was comfortable and quiet and warm. He was safe, and everything was enclosed by the dark. When he opened his eyes once more, he was cold, and he was alone. And the moon was huge and white and high in the sky, more than twice as big as the moon in Midgard, thought Odd, and he wondered if that was because Asgard was closer to the moon or whether it had its own moon.
The bear was gone. In the pale moonlight, Odd could see shapes moving in the water of the pool, and he pulled himself to his feet and limped over to look more closely. At the water's edge, he crouched down, made a cup from his hand, scooped up water, and drank. The water was icy cold, but he drank. As he drank, he felt warmed and safe and comfortable. The figures in the water dissolved and reformed.
What do you need to see? Asked a voice from behind Odd. Odd said nothing. You have drunk from my spring, said the voice.
Did I do something wrong? Said Odd.
There was silence. Then, no, said the voice. It sounded very old, so ancient Odd could not tell if it was a man's voice or a woman's. And then the voice said, look.
On the water's surface, he saw reflections. His father in the winter playing with him, and his mother, a silly game of blind man's buff that left them all giggling and helpless on the ground. He saw a huge creature with icicles in its beard and hair, like patterns the frost makes on leaves, and he saw on early ice in the morning, sitting beside a huge wall, scanning the horizon recklessly. He saw his mother sitting in the corner of the great hall, sewing up fat Elfred's worn jerkin, and her eyes were red with tears.
He saw the cold plains where the frost giants live, saw frost giants hauling rocks and feasting on great horned elk and dancing beneath the moon. He saw his father sitting in the woodcutter's hut he had so recently left himself. His father had a knife in one hand, a lump of wood in the other. He began to carve. Strange, distant smile on his face. Odd knew that smile. He saw his father as a young man, leaping from the longship into the sea and running up a craggy beach. Odd knew that this was Scotland, and soon his father would meet his mother.
He kept watching. The moon was so bright in that place, Odd could see what he needed to see. After some time, he pulled out the lump of wood which he had found in his father's hut and his knife, and he began to carve in smooth, confident strokes, removing everything that wasn't part of the carving. He carved until daybreak, when the bear crunched through the trees into the clearing. It It did not ask what Odd had seen in the pool, nor did Odd volunteer anything. Odd climbed onto the bear's back. "You're getting smaller again," said Odd. This was no longer the huge bear the previous evening. Now it seemed only slightly bigger than it had been first time Odd had ridden it. "You've shrunk." "If you say so," said the bear. "Where did the frost giants come from?" asked Odd as they bound through the forest.
Jotunheim.
"Jotunheim," said the bird. "It means giant's home. It's across the great river. Mostly they stay on their own side, but they've crossed before. One time, one of them wanted the sun, the moon, and the Lady Freya. Time before that, they wanted my hammer."
Mjolnir.
"Mjolnir and the hand of Lady Freya. There was one time they wanted all the treasure of Asgard and Lady Freya's." "They must like Lady Freya a lot," said Odd. "They do. She's very pretty." "What's it like in
Go ahead.
Jotunheim?" said Odd. "Bleak, treeless, cold, desolate. Nothing like it is here. You should ask Loki." "Why?" "He wasn't always one of the Aesir. He was born a frost giant. He was the smallest frost giant ever. They used to laugh at him, so he left, save Odin's life on his travels." And the bear hesitated and seemed to think twice about whatever he had been going to say, then finished. "He keeps things interesting." And the bear said, "Anything you did last night? Anything you saw?" "Yes." "The wise man knows when to keep silent. Only the fool tells all his nose."
The fox and the eagle were waiting beside the remains of the fire. Odd finished what was left of the fish, and then the bear said,
Trying to find where I am. "Well, what do we do now?" Odd said. "Take me to the edge of the forest. You wait for me. I'll walk along from there to the gates of Asgard."
"Why?" asked the fox.
"'Cause I don't want the frost giants knowing you three are back," said. "I don't want the frost giants knowing you three are back," said Odd. "Not yet." They set off. I could get very used to traveling by bear, Odd said, but the bear only grunted.
Okay, there you have it. That was chapter 5.
Sorry, I messed up.
That's
so
all right.
much
You don't
tonight.
feel well. We're both a little crummy. Tomorrow night at 5:30, chapter 6, The Gates of Asgard. I have a picture. This is myself and my morning show partner, Judy Eaton.
Who's that guy?
And that is one of Carol's favorite country singers from West Virginia.
Oh my gosh, it is.
It's Brad Paisley. When he was first starting out in his career, very young Brad Paisley.
Minus the hat.
Minus the hat. That might have been what threw you off. He didn't have his hat.
We met his dad once at his concert.
Yeah.
His dad looks like I hope Mr. Paisley's still with us, but looks just like Brad. And very, very nice.
Very, very nice gentleman. Okay, that'll do it for us. We will see you back here tomorrow evening. Hopefully we will feel better. Hopefully you will feel awesome. Hopefully you will have a terrific Wednesday evening. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and choose joy.